This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
What up, folks? Welcome into another wonderful episode of Money Moves with Jonathan Von Tobel, flying solo today, but don't worry. We have a great slate of guests we'll tell you about here momentarily. We also have a great weekend of programming coming up. Ben Stevens is going to be with us for the next 2 days as we get ready for the Sweet 16, which begins, of course, tomorrow. Very much looking forward to that. Also looking forward to what we have on the card for today, both in terms of sports and the show. So let's not waste any more time and get right to how we usually start our programs.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
It is indeed, and because I'm by myself, and I like to think out loud, you're going to be stuck with me a little bit later as we mull through our contest selections for March Madness for the NCAA tournament. I've got 2 of them. We are in the hunt for Paul Stone in the Circa College Hoops Challenge. And I will reiterate, and I will say multiple times for our crew here behind the glass, you will and should be rooting for me, because if I win, you benefit. Because if I win, I'm taking the $1,000 in the cabana and we're going out and we're having a good time at the end of April when I'm done with everything that I've been doing. So you have to root for me still nonetheless. So we'll be looking forward to that. Do have a couple that I've settled on, but some gamesmanship I think I have to play for the best bets. We only have 11 picks left in this thing. Really not that many. So I do have a strategy that we'll talk about. And don't look now, but Money Moves in second place among the VSiN shows. Not the highest bar to climb, but still, we're doing very well, and we got to get there to first place. I don't think we win anything there other than pride, but we have our contest selections that we have to get to coming up a little bit later in the program. Next up, we actually have a good NBA card. Yeah, we have a lot of games today, 12, in fact, in the association, but we actually have a ton of really fun contests that should actually matter in the grand scheme of things, and that even includes the Lakers, who are big favorites on the road against the Indiana Pacers. Thunder will take on the Boston Celtics. A couple of Celtics getting off of celebrating Monday Night Raw, as we covered the other day here on the program. Heat on the road against the Cavaliers. It's actually a big day for the Southeast Division. Charlotte Hornets, we'll talk about a little bit, put the absolute beat down on the Sacramento Kings yesterday, to the point where on their social media site, all they put up for the final score was checknba.com. But we have got a really fun card in the association. And the Tank Bowl, if you will, Wizards at Jazz. Who can lose on purpose better, and a lot more to get to. So, good NBA card. We'll go through every single one of those games. But we begin with, I think, the theme of the day. I get excited about this every single time. I think all of you do too. What are we celebrating today? What are we opening up with today? But opening night, yeah, that's right. We're not going to call it opening day. We're calling it opening night because I guess tomorrow is technically opening day with all of the games. But Major League Baseball is back. And we get a good one tonight on the streaming service. The New York Yankees taking on the San Francisco Giants. You know, we do complain a lot about things in our society, and I saw some complaining that the Yankees had to start on a streaming service. Can we just shut up and watch the games? It's okay. Like, this is the future. It's 2026. We know where to find it. More people in America, I believe, have Netflix than they do cable. So I am very much looking forward to what we're going to see here between Max Fried and Logan Webb. So let's start with the game itself. We'll also roll over some futures and what we saw last night in the association, because we got some big picture things to zoom out on here. But right now, New York Yankees on the road against the San Francisco Giants. Doesn't that feel good? Doesn't it smell good to just handicap some baseball and grind through the regular season schedule? It's what we're doing again here already. Open up about $1.14 favorite. We've seen the Yankees get bet up to about a minus 126. Moneyline price plus 104 coming back on the San Francisco Giants. Again, shop around with where you're at. Look for your numbers. Different spots have these different splits, so you're getting a little bit back here in certain instances. So, for example, if you like the San Francisco Giants and you're in a spot that you can get a couple of different places, guess what? There's a plus 109 on the screen right now. Or if you're in a jurisdiction that has all of the books, like a Colorado, Circa is offering plus 106. And in the last couple of minutes, as we are speaking, just moved up to about minus 118 in favor of the New York Yankees. Total open up here at Circa 6.5, over minus 125. Predominant number right now is 7, shaded to the under at minus 115. Small bump on 6.5 of 2 up to 7. Maybe a little bit to do with the weather later today. Not crazy windy, but blowing out straight dead center to about 16 miles an hour, according to some weather reports. So we'll see if that affects whether or not this game is going to be played at a slightly higher scoring pace. But it has to start with the pitchers that we're going to see here today. And specifically, we'll get to awards and futures portfolios coming up in a couple of minutes. But Logan Webb for the San Francisco Giants has been absolutely dominant, especially coming off of last year, a 3.22 ERA, and an argument to be made that Webb was actually somewhat unlucky over the course of his 207 innings pitched. A 3.22 ERA compared to a 2.60 fielding independent, a 2.78 xFIP. Webb was phenomenal. And if you can get that batting average on balls and playing down like he did last year, it was 346, well above average or below average, depending on how you look at it. Webb is, I think, going to put forth a very, very strong season. And I really do think that here today, worth backing with a lineup that maybe is going to have a little bit more support for him. The San Francisco Giants last year were a really average lineup. We've talked a lot about that over the course of the offseason, getting ready for these teams. And for this season. And I think that Webb's going to be in a pretty good position here to get this done if he gets a little bit more support. The other side, though, it is Max Fried. Fried was great last year, 2.86 ERA, 3.07 fielding independent. Really no cracks in the armor whatsoever if you're looking at some sort of regression, and should largely expect that this team is going to come out here and be exactly what they are behind Fried. The Yankees, that is. Yankees big picture we'll talk about because we do have some questions, I think, as to what this team looks like with their rotation big picture. But this team is going to be formidable, as we know. But tonight, -126 on the road against a Giants team that I think is better from last year against a guy who I think can win the NL Cy Young. If you're going to give me that +106, I think I'm going to take a piece of that for the San Francisco Giants just to get a sweat on in opening night in Major League Baseball. So we'll talk about that. No real pick here for the total for me. Again, with the wind blowing out, maybe you get a little bit more, but Webb has been absolutely phenomenal. I think you're going to get a pretty low-scoring affair. So with that, let's talk about some baseball futures because as we are getting to the season and we are here, do have some win totals, and I want to rehash all of them, league winners, awards, and stat leaders in the futures portfolio as we are here at the start of the Major League Baseball season. So 4 win totals for me as we head into the MLB season. Nicely split down the middle. 2 unders, 2 overs. Astros under 83.5 at -120. We can focus on each of these for just a couple of minutes only because the Astros are a team we've talked about very briefly, but as part of our play ball series, which got cut a little short with this thing called the NCAA tournament, didn't really get to a ton of what the Astros provide. But this Astros team, I think you have a ton of questions as to what this rotation really is going to look like outside of what we know at the top. Hunter Brown is going to be absolutely phenomenal, but there are a lot of questions now that Framber Valdez is not there. And I think this is going to be a team that I think surprises. I mean, look, some of the win totals out there are pretty high. We saw some spots get to as high as 86.5 and get bet down, but I thought 83.5 still worth playing here to get some sweat for the regular season. Astros could be a team that finished third, maybe fourth in the division in the American League West, depending on what the Athletics do here. Very high on the Rangers, as you will know when we look at our futures here. But Astros under the win total here. Angels over 70.5. This is going to be one that I'm going to completely regret. The more I've watched this team in spring training, the more I realize that this pitching is going to be absolutely abhorrent. They're hanging pictures of Alek Manoah in the stadium. I think the lineup is good enough, and we'll talk about Joe Adell when it comes to leading the league in home runs. I know our guys over there that we were just watching on Prop Points talked a little bit about their favorites in terms of home run leaders. Joe Adell was on the list, I believe, for Jeff, but I think the Angels offense can't really do enough to carry what is going to be an abysmal pitching staff, both in bullpen and, of course, the back end of the rotation. Maybe you've got some upside, but Grayson Rodriguez on the IL. Manoah has been awful in spring training, and the Angels over 70.5, one I'm going to definitely regret. One I won't regret, though, Twins under 73.5, -110. Twins, I think, are going to be a very poor team, and maybe even sellers by the time we get to the trade deadline. I think that's going to be a very barren roster. And I'll go with everybody else here, too. We've talked a lot about the White Sox on this show. We talked about them as part of the play ball series as well. But the White Sox over 67.5, a team that I do think can finish ahead of the Minnesota Twins in that division, in those standings. We've discussed that before at that plus price, but I think the White Sox, asking them to win 70 games so far this year, or more, I think is a perfectly reasonable ask. So Astros under, Angels over, Twins under, and then White Sox over as well. League winner. So to win the American League, 2 futures I'm riding with heading into the season. Texas Rangers at 13-1 and the Kansas City Royals at 16-1. And then an award, as we talked about, Logan Webb. You can find him at 17-1 or so. He has all of the makings of a guy that can win this award. We talked about the benchmarks that you want to meet as a pitcher to win the Cy Young with Adam Burke yesterday. You look at the numbers for him, think you can do it here. Pitched at least 200 innings each of the last 3 seasons, met the 200 strikeout threshold last season. Think he can do it again here. As Adam mentioned with us yesterday, those strikeout numbers tend to hold in terms of strikeout rate, and I think that we're going to see another strong season from Logan Webb. And, of course, the ballpark helps out, too. In the National League, we'll ask him to go up with Hall Skeens and potentially get it done at 17-1. And then the long shot, Joe Adell, 80-1 to lead the league in home runs. 80-1 for a reason, but Adele last year, for those who don't remember, coming off of a really strong power year in which he pushed for 40 home runs, and I think he's going to be perfectly capable of having another strong season yet again, and maybe being able to push for that title. Swing rate's there, the bat speed's there, the launch angle's there, the contact is there. Lineup is somewhat thin, so maybe you have questions as to whether or not he's going to get the protection that you need. But coming off of a year when he hit 37 home runs and drove in 98, I think he can do it again and push for the league leader in home runs. So that's what we're going to bat with, if you will, as we head into the Major League Baseball season. Last night in the NBA, and we'll carry this over a little bit later in the program as well, did want to hit on a couple of things we talked about yesterday's program. The fact that favorites really dominated the day. Last night, not the case. Only 4 games, but underdogs cover 3. Favorites do win every single one of the matchups, 4-0 straight up. We'll talk about the Hornets coming up a little bit later because it is a big day for the division. But it is worth pointing out, a team that we talked about yesterday continues to be the best bet in sports right now. The New Orleans Pelicans stay inside of the number against the New York Knicks last night. They are now 8-1. Against the spread in their last 9 games. And how about this? 19-8 against the spread. They've covered 70% of their contests over the last 27. Borrego's been great. Some of the rumors are that maybe he won't be able to retain the Pelicans' job as they head into the offseason and into next year. I think it would be foolish. But they have been one of the best teams against the spread in the National Basketball Association. And this 8-1 stretch, the one loss, for those who don't remember, was that Lakers game in which they were catching a big number, 8.5 or so, and they blew it. Gave up that 24-7 run at the end of the fourth quarter to fail to cover by the hook. So the Pelicans have been live every single time they have hit the floor. All right, we'll take a break, and when we come back, Kelley Bydlon's going to join us in studio. Golf will be, of course, the focus of our attention with Kelley as we look ahead to this weekend's tournament and more. So don't go anywhere. Money Moves just getting started here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Hey, let me get your attention real quick, podcast listeners. It's March, which means the madness is officially upon us, and the folks at VSiN have really gone crazy with this one. I'm being told that for just $29.99, you can get unlimited access to VSiN Pro through May 1st. I'm talking picks through the tournament, public betting data for every single game, plus sharp tools, projections, articles, and more, which means every day you wait is an opportunity missed. Just click the link in the description to get started. It's March, baby. All right, now back to the show.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Special guest at the desk. Yeah, it's not just me. We got to get some other folks in here. Got to get some other opinions. Kelley Bydlon has been nice enough to stick around. Did you have a meeting after this? What'd you do?
Meeting with old Danny Higgins, solving all the world's problems. That's what we do after the show,
It is a normal tradition to walk in here and listen to you guys talk about the show. But then you said something, you were like, we got to go talk about the show. And then you walked out, which I felt very offended by. I was like, you can't do it in front of me. Maybe because I had to reschedule my hit for tomorrow. So that's probably why. Maybe
no. You're good, man. You're good. You need to focus on your show. I need to focus on mine.
All right. So I retweeted it. Long Shots is out. So you can check that out wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you do. I know that you do already. As we look ahead to what is going to happen this weekend, let's first talk about, as I always like to, the Texas Children's Houston Open. What are we looking for, as I always like to ask you guys, in terms of the archetype of golfer that you like to see here? And I'll add a second question you can answer as part of that, too. Actually, I'll save the second question. Tell me about what kind of golfer you are.
Okay. Love it. Love that you asked this question because this is my favorite part about betting and handicapping golf is that, guess what? It changes every single week, right? This is a different answer every single week. And what we get at Memorial Park is a really actually unique test that we don't see very often. And yes, you're going to see, if you want to go back in years past, you're going to see Min Woo Lee won this thing at 20 under par. Stephen Yeager, 12 under par the year before that. Tony Finau, 16 under. Some real low scores that we have seen here, John. But it is what type of player? This is a public golf course, wide open off the tee. If you're watching at home, you will see this is very short, rough, ryegrass, just a little over 1 1/4 inch. This is a public course. It's got to be made for the average Joe to go play it, right? Yeah. For you to go play it. So the rough is not too penal. Okay, fairways aren't too wide, but still, with the rough not being too penal, it's not bad. You don't have much water. There's not many bunkers. This is wide open, bomb it off the tee. Bomb and gouge golf course, you're going to hear that a lot. Bomb it, go figure out where your ball is, hit it from there. Now, the one thing that's unique here is we often like to, I personally do, a lot of golf bettors do, focus in on ball strikers. If you're good off the tee and you're good on approach, usually going to end in long-term good results. Here, approach doesn't matter as much as around the green play. These are tricky green complexes, so you're going to see a lot of approach shots that come up short, or even guys will aim for maybe the pin is up against the edge of one side of the green, right? You're going to aim at the pin. If you go off the green, it's not that big a deal because you're going to have to scramble from here. You'd rather play that shot, John, than a 50-foot putt. So that it throws off some stats this week. Some of the approach stats you got to be careful with. Around the green, scrambling, stuff like that, you need to weigh heavily this week.
All right. With that being said, before we get to some of the guys you like, Scotty Scheffler withdraws due to family reasons, opens up the field, obviously. I mean, to an extent, he hasn't really been playing particularly well, but still, his presence there now changes the odds board. DraftKings has Minwoo Lee as your favorite at plus 1475. Then you get to Goddard up at 20-1. So with the absence of Scheffler and what looks like a pretty light field, how are we handling this?
Yeah, it's, look, I thought it added some value for those next names on the board when Scheffler was in there, a little bit longer numbers that you're able to get on there. Now you got to, okay, you're deducting Scheffler. Like you said, I thought his odds were going to be even a little bit longer in this event than what they were. I thought we were going to start seeing 4-1s on Scotty. Haven't gotten to that point yet. See where we're at, when the Masters rolls around. This is still... I'm very chalky this week. Minwoo Lee, I bet him last year at this event. Look, his game fits perfect for this. He is the exact player that I'm talking about. He is long off the tee. That is where he is really dangerous, and he is one of the better around the green players and scramblers that's on the PGA Tour. It's just usually why we haven't seen, or not yet in his career, super long-term, consistent finishes from him. Is the approach game can come and go, and the putter can come and go sometimes. What he did last year at this event, putter got hot, and he was able to roll away with it with strong around the green game. So I love Minwoo Lee this week. Look, shop around. We're always going to say that, right? I would still recommend betting this the same way. I guess I got longer numbers on all these guys. I still think there's value at the top of the board. Minwoo Lee, Chris Goddard, Jake Knapp are my 3 outright bets.
All right, so I was going to ask you about Goddard, but I'm glad he's on your futures, your outright list here. I don't want to say you would be worried, but ever since that stretch he was on where the Sony Open, the Phoenix Open, pretty average by the standards of a guy who's playing like that, tied for 37, a cut, a T18, and then a tied for 56th. His form going into this, and then, of course, just big picture heading into the Masters, where are you at, or is that just a hot start?
No, not at all. We go back to the Scottish Open last year. Yeah. He's played 15 events. He's won 3 times. Yeah. I've been all over Goddard all season. This is definitely not the golf course to back off him now. And going into the Masters, look, as far as we always like to talk about Masters experience. I think when you're looking at that top debutante market, because it is going to be his first Masters, I think he's going to be a very popular name. Yep. And I think he's a guy whose game could fit there pretty well. Like, I'm going to have some bets on him. I already made a long shot bet on him in the outright market. Yeah, so it's already there. I know there's some golf bettors that will rip me for that one. I don't really care because everybody likes to look at experience with Augusta. I think his game fits very well there in this week. Look, this is you talked about the recent finishes. It's fine, John. There's a lot of these guys, especially the guys I'm targeting this week. The driver matters so much. In some of those events that you're talking about, you're not able to use it as much. You're not able to use it to its full ability like these guys are going to be able to this week at this type of course where he can just really rip it out every par 4, par 5 and bomb it down there. I think it sets up very nicely for him. And look, he's a guy who's played pretty well around the green. He finished T18 at this course last year, so I think he can get it done. Again, 15 events, he's won 3 times, twice already this year. I think the bigger thing for me, this is always, we talk pricing when it comes to betting so often. I just can't explain to you why there's this big a gap between him and Minwoo Lee. I would have those 2 much closer at the top of the board.
All right, let's go to some top 20s. You do have Goddard up among some of the guys you have to finish top 20. Who else do you have here?
Yeah, real quick, last outright, Jake Knapp. I did add a top 20 on Chris Goddard. Really like him this week. I usually blend some top 5s with all my outright plays, so didn't go anything more on Minwoo Lee or Jake Knapp. And Jake Knapp, there is a reason for real quick. I like him. I think you could statistically make the case that Jake Knapp should be the favorite in this event for what he's done so far. He doesn't have a win like Chris Goddard does have this year, but the finishes have been very strong. His statistical profile has been very strong this year. Problem is he had a back back spasm two events ago. He was forced to withdraw and then missed the cut at the Players. I still have some questions. I think that, look, the fact that he's teeing it up at all and not just shutting it down before the Masters should mean he's okay. It's a back, though, in golf. You never know when something could pop up. So, point is, I'm gonna aim high, go for the outright play here. I'm not going to sink too much money into top 20s tournament matchups, kind of skipping that completely with him.
All right. As for that top 20, so you had Chris Goddard up at plus 105, Thorbjornsen at plus 150, Nicola Højgaard, I want to say it right, Højgaard at plus 150, Adam Scott plus 175, Keith Mitchell 2-1. When you look at these top 20s of them, which would you say that you like the most?
Well, I think Goddard's the easy answer because the short price. But, man, Højgaard, I have bet in placement markets now. This will be the 5th consecutive tournament that he's played in. It has just been really, really impressive what he's been able to do. Again, everybody I targeted this week, long off the tee, okay? He's one of those guys. But then he's always been that. You go and look at the rest of his game, man. He's gaining around the green. He's been an elite putter so far this season. There's a lot to like about what Nicolai Højgaard's done this year. I'm keep going back to it. Look, it's been up and down results. He's finished just outside the top 20 past couple weeks. That's burned me. The past 2 events that he's played in. I like it in this field, though. You're getting that type of price on how he's played so far this year. Really like Højgaard. Thorbjornsen, up-and-comer that a lot of the golf bettors are very excited to see what he could turn into. I haven't seen as much of it yet, but he had a good finish at the Players. This course should lay out a lot better for him. Keith Mitchell, I love betting Keith Mitchell. Great ball striker, long off the tee, great on approach. Up and down start to the season. I think he's hitting a groove now. 2-1, he makes a lot of sense. And Adam Scott, he's been one of my highest-rated golfers all year.
Any NBA tonight as we get you out of here?
Thunder, man. I'm on the Thunder tonight.
That seems short, right?
It seems short. I thought I said that same thing when I opened it up last night, and I saw 3.5. So, I have a bad number. I laid 3.5 last night.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to be with you on that for OKC tonight. We're down to 2.5. Injury report is clean for Oklahoma City. It's very clean. It's the cleanest it's been all season long. And for Boston, obviously, we know Vucevic, but I think the Celtics are getting a little overvalued. They've been on a good run, and Tatum's on a little bit of a cold streak, though. They're good, but they're not Thunder good. And with Williams back, I think this is very odd that we're this short.
That's what I thought, too. So who knows? Maybe we're walking into a buzzsaw. The only other one I looked at tonight was Miami. I think I'm playing them, but that number keeps coming in, right? It's like catching
I'm looking at 2.5 now,
2.5, yeah.
Total's been bet up.
Need to bet that soon if I'm going to get on that. I mean, back-to-back situation, obviously, for Cleveland. I don't know what you've thought about this Heat team recently, but there's been some impressive stuff. There's been some unimpressive stuff, and it's the old catch the falling knife thing, right? I think they're frauds too long term. Some of the short term stuff, though, I think you might be able to catch. So I think they're still figuring out how to play with Hero and Powell together, really. Right? I mean, they haven't played that many games together.
5 straight losses, 1-4 ATS for the Miami Heat. Kelly, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Long Shots is up. Make sure you check that out. We're getting closer to the Masters, too. So put in your feed, subscribe, like, rate, review. You're going to want it for every single one of these tournaments, not just the major. When we come back, we'll hit the association, a giant card, 12 of them. We're going to get through every single one.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Some pretty good news in the association, but before I tell you about it, we want to make sure that you know our segment today is sponsored by Upside. Download the free Upside app, earn real cash back every time you fill up. Use promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first tank. We get news today from Shams Charania. We won't focus a ton of time on this, but at least worth noting that the NBA's Board of Governors approved a vote for the league to explore bids and applicants for expansion teams exclusively in Las Vegas and Seattle. Bidding process is expected to generate offers in the $7 to $10 billion range for the NBA. So Vegas looks like is going to get a team. We know Seattle is as well. Be pretty interesting to see this. I will say this, because we're going to move off of this quickly. No big betting implications, obviously. But there's a lot of thought that this team will get a gambling name. No shot. There's no way in hell that the NBA is going to allow, considering what just happened with Terry Rozier and the location of the team, that this will be a team that is named as such, you know, the high rollers, the whatever, the gamblers. There is no way in hell that that's going to happen. So that'll be interesting to see what's going to be in terms of ownership group and whatnot. But NBA coming to Las Vegas in a couple of years. Season expected to be 2028, 2029. Before we get to the card today, did want to follow up on what we opened the show with, which was a little bit about last night and a quick rehashing, just because this is worth mentioning. As we talked about, the favorites go 4-0 straight up, 1-3 against the spread last night. The one favorite in the NBA that covered was the Charlotte Hornets, beat Sacramento 134-90. And how about this? Very quietly, despite the fact that the Hornets are in the bottom of the Eastern Conference in terms of the standings, and we'll get to that because there are some ramifications for tonight that we will be watching very closely. The Hornets have quietly crept up to 7th in the NBA in non-garbage time net rating. They've outscored their opponents by 4.7 points every 100 possessions. They are, from a net rating standpoint, one of the best teams in the NBA. And we have this situation developing. Now, look, they are only right now just a game back from the Atlanta Hawks, who are currently outside, finally, of the Eastern Conference play-in. But they're a game back from Atlanta. Orlando continues to slide. They have lost 6 straight, and we'll see if Charlotte can surpass them here in the next day or two. And the Philadelphia 76ers are sitting there, and I misspoke, 2 games behind Atlanta, 1 game behind Philadelphia, who is playing today. We'll talk about that. Joel Embiid's about to make his return. Whole point here being is that the Hornets can still climb their way out of the play-in, something I don't want. Got them at just over 4-1 to make the play-in, 12-1 to make the playoffs. So it would be a decent trade-off, but still would like to be selfish and catch both. They're also obviously in the running to potentially get into that 7-8 spot, which would mean they get 2 cracks at it. They can lose in the first one and then, of course, try to play and win a second game in the play-in. But either way, the whole point here being that the Detroit Pistons are not giving up that 1 seed given the way they're playing. They've got a 5-game lead. We got about, 10 games or so left to go. Likely going to hold on to the number 1 seed. But if it's Detroit and Charlotte, I do think that Detroit is going to be in a little bit of danger there in that 1-8 series. So the theater would be absolutely spectacular if you do get Charlotte into the postseason as an 8 seed, taking on the Detroit Pistons with Cade Cunningham coming off of that collapse lung, which, by the way, back at practice, back at the facility today, getting some work in, Cade Cunningham was. So let's start with the slate today. Chicago on the road against Philadelphia. Joel Embiid expected to make his return today. We see this sitting at 6.5 across the board. Total 240.5 or 239.5, depending on where you look. You can find every single number in between. But Embiid is officially listed as questionable. Quentin Grimes is as well. But the expectation is that Embiid will be out there. Be curious to see what the market wants to do here with the 76ers. Philly has not really been playing particularly well, especially since the Embiid injury and what we have seen from them. The problem for Philly has been, of course, a little bit of its offense with Tyrese Maxey not being available. Big picture, you zoom out a little bit here, 2-2, straight up and against the spread in their last 4 games, depending on where you want to look. Chicago on the other end, we've talked about them a lot, and this might be a spot to finally go against them here. The Bulls have been a fantastic team to bet on. 8-3 ATS in their last 11 games, coming off of a big straight-up win over the Houston Rockets that snapped them out of a 1-4 straight-up slide. We mentioned Ime Udoka in his press conference after that game. That's not an easy spot, but that's a spot where you look at Chicago, considering what we talked about. Maybe that was the team that was going to ruin a moneyline parlay. There were 2 that night. Orlando was one of them. But Chicago has been a great bet on team ever since the faded words of wanting to fade this squad from this show. But I do think that if Embiid's going to be out there, this might be one worth looking at. Somewhat lengthy injury report for the Chicago Bulls. Isaac Okoro is questionable. Anthony Simons is doubtful. We know that Ivy is out. This is going to be a spot where maybe we get back up to 7.5 if Embiid and Quentin Grimes are available to go. But I think Philly would be in a pretty good spot to take out Chicago tonight, who's coming off of a big win. You can call it a letdown if you want, but the Bulls have just been a good bet on team, and this might be one where it's a little short given the return of Joel Embiid in the 76ers uniform. Atlanta and Detroit, this one, too, is going to be absolutely one worth watching. Yet again, no Cade Cunningham tonight for the Detroit Pistons. We've talked about this now 3 games since the Pistons have lost Cade Cunningham to this injury, and they are 3-0 straight up and against the spread in those 3 contests without Cunningham. Hawks do have a big injury here. Jalen Johnson, questionable to play. We'll see if he ends up getting out there. This opened 2.5 with a total of 226.5. You see the total's been bet up 2 points here if you're watching up on VSiN.com. Pistons, outside of Cade Cunningham. Jalen Duren on their injury report, but he is probable to play, as is Tobias Harris. Still no Isaiah Stewart. Sasser's out as well still. This is one of a couple of games where I think you look at and you think, seems a little short, especially if you're going to get Johnson out there on the floor if you're the Atlanta Hawks. Again, it is understandable that the Pistons have been playing well without Cunningham, and they're a solid defensive team regardless. But with no Isaiah Stewart, no Cunningham, And we've talked about their three opponents. Yes, the Lakers, they beat them and snapped the winning streak. The Warriors and the Wizards among them, too. I don't know if I'm really freaking out too much here about what the Pistons have done over the last 3 games, trying to keep it in perspective, and maybe just going to reach out tonight and try to catch the falling knife that is fading the Pistons post-Cade Cunningham injury. Tried it with the Lakers the other day. Didn't really work. Now here again, potentially an option against the Atlanta Hawks. Again, we'll see what the number is, and we want to wait to see what Jalen Johnson has in store in terms of his injury status. Speaking of the Lakers, let's go here. Lakers continue their road trip. They're taking on the Indiana Pacers. This number's come down, and rightfully so. Good injury report for the Indiana Pacers today. Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam, and Obi Toppin all probable to play tonight for the Indiana Pacers, knocking that down from an opener of about 11 to 9.5. And you think that Indiana might be pretty live here with you when you have all of these guys out and available. Look, the Pacers have been an abysmal team. We've talked about this losing streak that they were on. They finally snap out of it. I think it was 16 straight at one point. They beat the Magic the other night as one of the big dogs that ruined the stupid moneyline parlay. No great shakes in beating Orlando considering the way that they're playing at this point right now. But Indiana, when they have their guys out there, we'll call it majority, the glut of guys that made it to the NBA Finals a season ago, they're much more competent than they're given credit for. Power rating's still a little low at 9.5. We'll see what the market wants to do with this. Right now, we're starting to see 238s on the totals as well, so this thing from a totals perspective is getting bet up, but I think Indiana can stay inside of that, but hold out hope. I see 110 up on the screen. The market does like this Lakers team a ton, and as we're talking about this, we're looking at Circa go from 10.5 to 10 too, but I think if you can grab double digits, that's the way to go here with Indiana. We'll have some best bets coming up a little bit later and some contest plays. But for this one, Indiana is going to be on the card later tonight against the Los Angeles Lakers. Big one tonight, though. Again, it is a deep card, and it's a good card, man. Oklahoma City on the road against Boston. We talked about this with Kelley Bydlon just a couple of minutes ago. This opened up 3.5. We're down to 2.5 with a total of 218. OKC favored on the road. The theme here being good injury reports. This is a great injury report. The Thunder have nobody on the injury report of note. Everybody is fully ready and available to go. Yet here they are only laying 2.5 with a total of 218.5. Now, there is a caveat. OKC, despite the fact that they come into this thing having won every single one of their games in the last 12, again, 12-0 straight up over the last 12 games, during this winning streak, despite the fact that they've won 12 straight, they've only covered 3 of them. The power rating on OKC has been very high. They have not met those expectations from the betting market. Having said that, now that we're full strength, ready to go against Boston, understand where the Celtics are at from the market standpoint, but OKC, another one of these games, that's the theme of what are we missing here? That seems short for the Thunder. Everybody's back. Jalen Williams the other day talked about how his wrist feels better than ever. They were slow rolling him back to make sure that he's healthy with the soft tissue issue that he was dealing with here too. The front court is fully intact. They're ready to go. They have all their lineup versatility. They've got multiple defensive pieces, matchup-wise, to throw at both Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown, by the way, one MVP voter today saying that he has Jaylen Brown first in the MVP standings. We'll bring up MVP again here on the other side because there were some words that were spoken by some other voters that made me want to scream, see, I was right. But we'll tell you what that meant coming up in a little bit. But long story short here, OKC is in fantastic form. They're finally fully healthy, and now we're asking them to go out to Boston, take on the Celtics, and get a win as a 2.5-point favorite and a cover. I think it's more than fair to ask the Oklahoma City Thunder to do that here too. So talked about the Pacers and the Thunder. We'll get to the rest of the NBA card on the other side, but OKC will definitely be on the card a little bit later tonight as we're sweating those out. Segment of Money Moves, sponsored by Upside. Remember, you can turn your gas purchases into real cash back with the free Upside app. Download Upside now. Use the promo code SPORTS. You get 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill-up. So download it now. Promo code SPORTS, 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill-up. Yeah, barely through about 3 games in the NBA card right now. On the other side, Cleveland on the second leg of a back-to-back dispatching those Orlando Magic yesterday in a tight game. Can they get it done later tonight against the Miami Heat? They have everybody on deck, and the Heat have lost 5 straight. We'll also get to the MVP race one more time as voters are starting to make their opinions known. And I will say that the betting market is absolutely wrong about this, and we'll tell you what it is.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
getting closer to the end of the season. Just about 11 games left in the NBA. So obviously awards are going to be front and center as part of some of the conversations. Victor Wembanyama the other day making headlines, making his case for most valuable player. Also a side note, because obviously, again, people just like to complain and whine about everything. The fact that Victor Wembanyama is publicly stating his case for MVP after being asked to, by the way. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think it's actually a great sign of competitive nature from Victor Wembanyama to get this thing done and want to win it, and he's showing it too. Ever since he's come back from injury, he's doing everything possible to not miss games, and so Wembanyama clearly is shooting for these awards, whether it be Defensive Player of the Year or Most Valuable Player, and that should be, I think, commended. So we heard from Michael Wilbon today of ESPN. Now, that matters because Wilbon is a voter, and I guess it was actually yesterday as part of PTI. And Wilbon stated that his voting order right now is Jaylen Brown 1, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander 2, and then Victor Wembanyama 3. However, he pointed out and made a caveat that if Victor Wembanyama were to win the 1 seed in the Western Conference, then he would be willing to flip his vote and make Victor Wembanyama the top pick on his MVP ballot. He did not mention at one point what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would have to do to win that award, although he is the second place guy on the ballot, whatever that means. So there are people who are thinking about Victor Wembanyama to win MVP. And there are some, like Wilbon, who have that weird arbitrary thing of if they win the 1 seed, he can grab it. We also heard from Brian Windhorst, Tim Bontemps, Tim McMahon, who do their regular podcast, and Why That Matters, the Hoop Collective, also from ESPN. 2 of them have been regular voters, Bontemps and Windhorst, and all of them brought up something that we brought up yesterday here on this show, and we have seen odds shift, and I don't think it's because of their conversations. I think it's also because of Victor Wembanyama and what he was able to do the other night. But the whole point here being is that there is no room and no universe in which Victor Wembanyama should be behind Luka Doncic to win Most Valuable Player. He, by all accounts, according to many voters who have votes, we don't know exactly who's going to have all of them so far this year, but who have had votes in the past, are making it known that Victor Wembanyama is very clearly second place right now in the pecking order for Most Valuable Player, and Luka Doncic yet continues to be ahead of him in the betting odds. It is not true. It is not accurate. It is not the case. Victor Wembanyama should have the second best odds to win Most Valuable Player. Talked about this yesterday, added him at 25-1, but those that have the votes, specifically as we're talking about Windhorst, Bontemps, all echoed the same thing. And I think the quote from Bontemps was, "Those are bad odds," when he was told that Victor Wembanyama was third on the pecking order and floating in the range of 20-1 to win Most Valuable Player. Doncic does not have a better shot to win the award than Victor Wembanyama. Okay, bar none, there's no question about it. And so maybe, again, worth adding at 13-1 for him to win this award. If they can overcome that 3-game gap. Now, you need OKC to lose as well, which is going to be, I think, a tough ask. I don't think they'll do that today. And that is going to be something they'll have to overcome. But if that can happen, Wembanyama's got a much better shot at this thing than the market's giving him credit for, and he's got a better chance than what Luka Doncic has in store for him. Spurs, by the way, they are in action tonight, 16.5-point favorites against the Memphis Grizzlies. Also a little bit of news today here from the NBA and the Grizzlies that Ja Morant is done for the season. I don't think that's a big surprise here, but Memphis, be interesting to see if Ja is a member of the team as we head to next year. You can use them as one of your many legs in a moneyline parlay. A couple of moneyline parlay leg options for you here today. San Antonio among them. You can also look at the Portland Trailblazers, who are 12.5-point favorites against the Milwaukee Bucks. Also laying 12 is Denver against Dallas tonight. And Golden State, a 12.5-point favorite over Brooklyn. Potentially your options for a moneyline parlay later this evening. We'll get into a couple of those games at an individual basis. But let's start with where we left off. Miami on the road against Cleveland. As we talked about with Kelley Bydlon, he was looking at the Heat. Bad scheduling spot for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Had a tough borderline clutch time game against the Orlando Magic last night. Now have to turn around to take on a Miami Heat team that is trying to claw their way back out of the bottom spot in the play-in in the Eastern Conference. Cleveland, we hit this the other day, but have not been a very good cover team. They have been winning these games, but they have not been covering at the same rate, similar to, I say similar because the Thunder have been winning games and on this 12-game winning streak, but similar to the Oklahoma City Thunder in that they're winning games but not covering them. For Cleveland, just the second leg of a back-to-back, not a third and four, so generally pretty solid for them here. For Miami, though, as we have discussed, they have lost 5 straight. They failed to cover 4 of them. Defensively, they leave a little bit to be desired here. And Cleveland's offense is really starting to get it together. Did a really great job last night against the Orlando Magic. We saw the offensive efficiency for Cleveland in that game of 143.2 points per 100 possessions. The pairing of James Harden and Donovan Mitchell has been absolutely fantastic. Mitchell was great down the stretch in the clutch. And I do think that this Miami Heat team, not really one worth, I think, backing personally. We've seen them step up in these Southeastern games and these conference games, these division games, and really get stamped back down. And I think Cleveland would be in a spot as they continue to try to improve their own standing in the Eastern Conference, sitting as the 4 seed right now, not really trying to stave off Toronto, but maybe move up to 3 potentially and take that spot from the New York Knicks, just 2.5 games back. We lean here toward Cleveland getting this done. Market pushing against me here with the scheduling spot, but again, not a 3 and 4 and a back-to-back, just the second leg of a back-to-back for Cleveland tonight. Total bet up from 241.5 up to as high as 243.5 at a couple of shops. We'll skip San Antonio and Memphis. We talked about that one briefly. Very long injury report for the Memphis Grizzlies as they are 16.5-point dogs at home. The Tank Bowl, Washington and Utah. We can spend a couple of minutes on this really quickly. This opened up 4, total of 239.5. It's pretty much where we're sitting right now for both of these teams. Injury report, though, for both pretty interesting. We know Coulibaly is questionable for the Washington Wizards. Keyshawn George not going to be available for Washington either. Alex Sarr out as well. For the Jazz, long list here. Isaiah Collier out, of course. Keontae George, Larry Markkinen, Bryce Sensabaugh is getting some rest tonight, and Cody Williams is questionable to play. Worth pointing out for a player prop standpoint, if Cody Williams is going to be available. Doug Kazarian has been on this, friend of the program, talked about this a lot with me in person. But this month for Cody Williams, they have turned the keys over to him as they have been just tanking away in Utah. And these last couple of games for him in terms of shot attempts and points have been brilliant. Averaging for the month of March. Averaging for the month of March, 14.1 points on 52.7% shooting. Williams has not really gotten off to a strong start in his career, but the development, it seems to be, is happening right now. So if he does play, might be worth looking at here from the standpoint of a player prop and point total. And for one Ace Bailey, also worth looking at here. Bailey coming off of a 37-point output against the Toronto Raptors. He has really kind of taken off over the last 3 games. Point totals for Bailey in his last 3 as the Jazz, again, are turning the keys over to some of these young prospects. 33 points on 13 to 27 shooting for against the Milwaukee Bucks. 25 points on 35% shooting against the Philadelphia 76ers. And that 37-point output against Toronto last time out. Shot attempts as well. How about this for Ace Bailey? Again, you talk about just letting him go and work through his issues. 21, 20, and 27 shot attempts in each of his last 3 games. Bailey has been the entire offense for the Utah Jazz. So something worth mentioning here as they are 4.5-point favorites at home, but also just worth mentioning from a player prop standpoint, how that has been going for Utah for those 2 key players. Houston and Minnesota, interesting game in the sense of 2 teams in the Western Conference trying to dig their way out of the situation they find themselves in. Anthony Edwards remains out for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Ayo Dosunmu, potentially a 6th man of the year candidate, is questionable today. Rockets, nobody of note here that is not available for them. But can you trust Houston? Opened up 1 in some spots, still 1.5. The other spots are creeping up to 2.5. Total been bet up from 221 to 223.5. Houston has been a team that you can't really figure out day to day. Neither is Minnesota, but at the very least you understand how they're going to try to get this done from their defense because Anthony Edwards has been a big part of what they do offensively. Rockets failed to cover their last 2, obviously coming off of the loss to the Chicago Bulls. They're also 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 games. We could go even further back. Rockets have been a fade team. They have not been playing well defensively. Houston is, shockingly enough, really kind of fallen off here, and we know about the issues they can have with their half-court offense. And with big Rudy Gobert clogging up the middle of the paint, you do wonder what this looks like. Small lean toward Minnesota here, even with the absence, of Anthony Edwards, just given the fact that I don't know if you can trust what Houston is going to bring to the table. And then we'll get this last one out of the way because the rest double-digit favorites, as we talked about. Although the Nets, it is very tempting to take 12.5 with the Brooklyn Nets. I think we're down to that 12.5 point mark. Yeah, 12.5 with them against Golden State. Just given the lack of ability on offense for Golden State. Can they really cover this big of a number? But the nightcap tonight, Toronto and Los Angeles, the Clippers. Clippers are laying 4 at home, total of 227. Names to watch on the injury report, so you can't really bet anything here, but worth pointing out for our audience. For Toronto, Brandon Ingram, Jakob Poeltl, Emmanuel Quickley, all questionable to play tonight. Kawhi Leonard, also questionable as well. So you'll need some answers on those names to see whether or not they're going to be available to play. and whether or not you want to play this, because if all of them are out, if some of them are out, it's going to have a really big impact on where this number eventually closes here. But for the Clippers, they have won 2 straight. They've covered those 2 games, went through a little bit of a lull, had failed to cover 4 out of 5, and, of course, had that 4-game losing streak, including back-to-back losses against the New Orleans Pelicans. But seems like a team at this point that understands their fate and, at the most part, is just trying to stay inside of the top of the play-in right now to stave off Portland, who's a big favorite tonight. On the other side, let's get to some college basketball. But remember, check out Cut, folks. Download it today. Betting against your friends and other fans, more fun than betting against the sports book. You know you agree, so check it out. Use referral code VSiN for a 15% deposit. Go to cut.com. That's KUTT.com. Use promo code VSiN for a 15% deposit.